Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Get to Know Them. Very happy to have you here today. I am your host, Monica Graves, broadcasting live from sunny Burlington, Ontario. And not sure where you're tuning in from, but over here, Mother Nature is playing the ultimate prank on us. We've got the first day of spring tomorrow, and the snow is coming down like crazy. We haven't seen snow pretty much all winter, and we're getting it all today. So wherever you are, I hope that you're cozy and warm and relaxed. You've got your cup of tea ready. I am so excited about our guest today. We're going to have a great conversation. But before I introduce our guest and tell you about our sponsors, if you're tuning in to Get to Know Them for the first time, this is a show I created actually when the pandemic first started. And I wanted to do something new and different and introduce you to some of the amazing people I know in the hopes that their stories will inspire you. So I'm truly happy to have you here. I have a couple of show sponsors I wanted to talk to you about. So my first show sponsor is Brenda Badome, and she is a very talented clothing designer located in Toronto, and I'm always wearing her clothes. You can check her out at brendabadome.com and use the coupon code Get to Know Them, and you'll get 20% off your order. Our next show sponsor is Scooters Roller Palace. For those of you who are interested in maybe trying roller skating again, this is the place you want to go. You can check out their website at scooters.ca. And you'll catch me there pretty much every Thursday night. Thursday nights at 7, there are lessons for adults. So please go get yourself a lesson if it's been a while. It's totally worth it. And our next show sponsor is located in Oakville. Flourish and Bask on the Lake Shore, just off of Lake Shore, actually. Downtown Oakville, flourishandbask.ca is the website. You can use the coupon code Get to Know Them for 10% off your order. And Chantal, the owner, has a lovely assortment of alcohol-free beverages. If you want to check that out, there's all different things like wine, champagne, cocktail mixes. It's a great, great place to go check out. So make sure you do that. And last but not least, I also sponsor the show with my business, glamjewels.com. I'm a jewelry designer here in Burlington, and I'm always wearing my jewels. If you're looking for something custom, you can go on my website, glamjewels, glamjulz.com. And I also partner with people like our guest today to do special fundraisers for causes that you believe in. So please reach out. People have been very, very successful and raised a lot of money for the causes that they are advocating for. Are you guys ready for our guest? I am so ready, and I'm so excited. I was like looking up trivia last night on turtles. And you're going to know why in just a second when I read you our guest's bio. So I'm so excited for me to meet, I've already met, for you to meet Ruth Takayesu. Ruth is an executive team member and volunteer with the Heartland Turtle Troopers. Ruth was raised with turtles. She grew up in Hamilton, and her family was known as a family that took in injured and discarded turtles. At one point, Ruth recalls that they had 17 turtles in their home. One of them even roamed throughout the house. It wasn't long before the family realized these turtles needed a better home than what they could offer. Ruth and her family handed the turtles over to the Royal Botanical Gardens. And in doing so, they found out 2 of the turtles were threatened and of special concern. Rescuing and caring for turtles at a young age has given them a special place in Ruth's heart. To this day, whenever she's out boating with her husband or just enjoying time in her kayak, she always has her eyes peeled for turtles. Ruth and her husband Ross moved to Brampton just 3 years ago during the early days of COVID. Barely able to get out to know what Brampton had to offer, The Heartlake Turtle Troopers ad was pointed out to Ruth by her husband, and it was in a Brampton flyer. Within seconds, Ruth joined the Heartlake Turtle Troopers Facebook group, and within days was an active emergency member. She has now seen more turtles in the Brampton community, right in her own backyard, than she has seen in her lifetime. As an IT professional focusing on continuous improvement and an avid crafter, Ruth is always looking for ways to help the Heartlake Turtle Troopers in a way that she can, in any way that she can. Ruth joined the executive team shortly after starting to volunteer. As a member of the executive team, she helps educate others on the importance of their local turtles and empowers them to help turtles as well. Ruth loves spending as much time as she can with her friends, the turtles. I am excited to chat with her about her passion for them and learn all there is to know about how truly important they are to our ecosystem. Ruth, I'm so happy you're here.
It's
How
great.
are you?
Yeah, great.
It's strange to hear your own bio, isn't it?
Yeah, it totally
Yeah,
is.
you're amazing. You've done, and we realize, like, oh my gosh, you've done a lot.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and as I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, okay, I know I said we had 17 turtles in the house, and my brothers probably would sit there and go, "What were you on? There weren't that many." But there were a lot for sure. I mean, I was probably 7 or 8 at the time when they were
Oh,
in the house, and the one was wandering around the house. That was a Blanding's turtle, which is a threatened species. And
oh,
when I look back at that, I just think, "Oh, that was insane." Um,
right.
but but we had this turtle, and I'll tell you its name. Its name was Thumper, and the reason
Oh,
its name was Thumper is, from what I knew, anyways, it would thump up against the tub when it wanted to get into the water. So it would go into the
you're
bathroom
cute.
and be thumping up against there.
Oh,
So we'd let it
how
in.
adorable. He
Yeah,
was really like a pet.
it was, and I guess that's. I always figured they're very smart.
Yeah.
My mom, I remember her telling a story once of having a dream that she had to go fill up the tub, and then she woke up and looked down, and there's Thumper looking up at her. So
Wow.
anyways,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that's why. And this is great because the first question I love to ask all of my guests is I wanted to ask you what little Ruth wanted to be when she grew up. So whether it has anything to do with turtles or not, I'm excited to hear what that is,
It's funny, it's
given your upbringing.
nothing to do with turtles, and nothing that I ever did in my life anyways.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, like I wanted to be an archaeologist. So I remember I
Oh,
remember you might even remember this, though you're probably a little bit younger than me, is there was this King Tut exhibition that came
yes.
to Toronto, right? And I remember being so into that, and I was going to be an archaeologist. And then after a couple of years, I realized, you know what? I'm terrible at geography and history. so so that would be a poor choice probably. So
Right.
I kind of abandoned that one, and then um, thought I'd be a nurse. So I was going to get into nursing. I did all sorts of sciences. I was very good in math and computers, and they were just starting to do like computer programming in the high schools where they actually brought a mainframe in, you coded cards, you submitted them. And I was good at it, but I was like, I'm going into nursing, and then I didn't get in, and I went to McMaster in Hamilton, and I ended up doing a general science, and I did some computers there, and applied for computers while I was trying to get into nursing yet again. I didn't get in,
Amazing.
but I got into computers, so I'm like, well, okay, I'll go with that.
Yeah. That's so
Yeah,
cool, Ruth, because now look at you. You are caring for these prehistoric animals. Like,
exactly, right?
yeah. So you are. I love when these little things that maybe we don't even think about or think is a big deal, when they come up from the past and you're like, wow, I'm actually right back to where I started in some ways, you
Yeah.
know? Like, yeah, it's really cool. So tell us a little more about what it was like. Who brought the first turtle into the house? How did this happen?
You know what? I think I was too young to actually know, but there were various types. So there were a number of red-eared sliders, which are pet turtles. And back in
Oh,
the day, a lot of people had these little pet turtles, and they were very small and cute. They
mhm,
were the little green guys, basically, with the little red on the sides, right? And
right.
so a lot of the neighbors had them. And whenever they got sick, it was like, oh, here, you can take care of these turtles, right? And I remember, because I do remember my mom saying, the problem is that sometimes their turtles come and they're sick and they make the other turtles sick. So then all the pet turtles would get sick, right? So that wasn't a good thing. And the diet they gave them, and like the whole thing around selling them as pets was probably a really bad idea because they need a certain amount of lighting, they certain types of lighting, they need proper food. Yeah, so it wasn't good for them, and a lot of the neighbors just didn't know how to take care of them. I'm not going to say we were great at taking care of them because I don't remember how long ours lived or whether they all got sick with this disease or whatever, but I
Mhm.
do remember the odd person coming by with a turtle that they hit with a car or thought they hit by it with a car, found it on the road and thought, well, they should give it to us because we had turtles. And I think that's how we ended up with the Blandings turtle and a painted turtle. And the painted turtle, I remember being a fairly big turtle as well. I'm not sure why it didn't get to roam the house nearly as much as the Blandings,
Yeah.
but they were fairly big ones. And eventually, believe it or not, we used to put. I remember we put the painted and the Blandings turtle out in a container, like a liquid
Mhm.
bath type of thing that was out in the backyard. And at one time I went back there and I'm like, "Hey, Thumper, what are you doing out of your container?" And he was in the grass, and I went and put him back in, and probably a couple of weeks later, we went out for the day, came home, and only the painted turtle was in there, and we never could find Thumper again. So when I look back at that, actually, before I go on, then
Mhm.
a couple of weeks later, we got another Blandings turtle. And I
Mhm.
immediately, like, I saw it in the tub the next morning. I woke up and I'm like, what's this turtle in the tub? It's that, hey, it's Thumper. No, that doesn't. And I'm looking at it going, that is not Thumper. I know Thumper, and that's got like different markings. So even I, like at 7 or 8 years old, could recognize that this turtle was not the same turtle. And
Oh.
my mom said, oh, yeah, someone, nicked it with their car. It had a bit of a chip in it or whatever. And it wasn't long after that, I think, that she decided you know what, we should take him to the Royal Botanical Gardens. So
Mm.
roll forward to 2021, I think I went to OTCC, which is the Ontario Turtle Conservation Center, and
Yeah.
they brought out the educational turtles, and like they had this whole educational session, and I was like asking all sorts of questions, you know,
Yeah.
and they bring out this Blandings turtle, and they go, okay, so a Blandings turtle, the bottom of it, the plastron, it is flat when it's a female and concave when it's a male. And I'm like, they are showing it, and I'm like, oh my God, Thumper was not male. All this time, I thought it was a male, and
Oh.
of course they were females because they were out nesting. It would have been nesting season. And when I
Oh,
like my head blew up then, and I'm like so messaging my brothers, did you know that those turtles were female? And one of them goes, yeah, one of them laid eggs while we had it. And it's like, oh my God. The things we did as but it was like 50 years ago,
of
like
course. Yeah, we didn't know.
no, but that's why I think I feel the need to educate people because,
Mhm.
they need to know, you can't just take them, even best intentions. You shouldn't take them. Um, they they look like they're wandering. What's the big deal if you bring it home or put it in a lake near you? But they know their area. They could have disease that they're bringing into other wetlands. So, you don't want that to happen. And so, I try and educate people as much as I can, you know.
Yeah.
And also the pet turtle thing is an issue. People ditch their pet turtles into the wetlands, and those become invasive species because they're bullies to the native Ontario turtles, and they vie for the resources that those turtles are trying to get, and there can be some benefits, sure, but really we shouldn't be doing that either. And it's something that us as humans tend to think we can control more, and we really should.
Wow. That's amazing. I was sharing with you before. I was all excited last night reading up on turtle trivia, and
Mhm.
I came across there's a turtle named Jonathan the Tortoise. Well, actually, it's a tortoise, so we can talk about that as well. But Jonathan the tortoise, who is the oldest living land animal, and he's 191 years old, and they're saying that's a conservative number. He could be quite a bit older than that. And then it went on to say that a turtle's average lifespan when they're held in captivity is anywhere from 10 to 20 years, but they are able to live up to 150. And if you take really good care of them, they can live to be in their 50s. But um Ruth, I wanted to ask you, there's a whole bunch of things there, but what is the difference between a turtle and a tortoise? Is there a difference, or
Well, yeah, and I'm probably
is it
not the
like an
best to
alligator
tell
and a
you
crocodile?
tell you the
Yeah,
difference, but like my
yeah.
understanding is a tortoise is more of land-based type of turtle. Um,
Okay.
and yes, they do live a lot longer. I believe that I've heard that too, like easily over 150 years old, whereas most of our turtles don't. They will live like in Ontario, they 30 to 50 years. Um, Snapping turtles, however, can live over 100.
Mhm.
And in fact, there was one up in Halliburton that was purported to be over 125 years old, and it died last year, I think it was,
Mhm.
um, and not necessarily naturally. Like it may have been natural, and it's kind of unknown what actually happened to this turtle, but we believe it was put into the wrong wetland. So again, it was not in its area. There was a lot of controversy over the wetland it was supposed to be in, and it may have been moved either because of that or because some person found it near a road and thought, oh, here's a nice wetland to put it in. I'll just stick it here. But then it doesn't know how to survive in that one. And it didn't survive. And so, yeah, it was documented over 125 years old. So it's kind of sad when you hear about that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Ruth, how can you tell the age of a turtle? Like, how do they do that?
You know what? You really, as far as I can tell, you can't. And that the only reason this one was documented that way was because they actually had something to tell them way back that it was, there were markings of it. This particular turtle had a certain type of humpback. It had, I think it was blind in one eye, so it was well distinguished amongst
Mhm.
turtles in that area. And a lot of people start noticing, like when you start noticing turtles in your area, you notice the same ones sometimes. So I've
Yeah.
met many people in Brampton where it's like they'll have one digging up their front yard and they'll call us over, because it's too close to a road, and we'll watch it for a bit and they'll go, you know what, that one comes here every year, or you know,
Sweet.
I've seen it over on the neighbor's lawn before. It has the same they'll show me a picture and it's the exact same turtle. You can tell by the markings. But otherwise, I don't believe they have a way of actually telling the age of a turtle.
Right. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about snapping turtles? I have to share something funny. I said to my husband, I'm not going to tell Ruth that, but he's got this whole thing about being afraid of swimming in the lake because he's afraid a snapping
A
turtle is
lot of
going to
people
bite
are.
off.
Okay, so I have my 3D turtle models here.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Love it. Yeah.
this is a painted turtle model. Okay, and it
Yeah.
is because of the red. And the this top part's called the carapace, and the bottom part is called the plastron, which, by the way, I got my 4-year-old granddaughter to learn just this
Oh,
past
good.
week.
I love it.
But this type of turtle can draw itself into the shell. Like the head can come in, the arms and legs can come in, so it can protect itself. Snapping turtles are not like that. This one's a big model, so it'll be hard for me to show you as easily, but
Right.
got dirt on it from being out in the
That's
wild.
okay.
But this section here is the plastron, but this is not. This is like the arms and legs. And
Wow.
that's like the bikini of the plastron, right? So it can't pull itself in. So without being able to pull itself in, the only protection it can do is snap, right?
Ah,
So the thing about the snapping turtle's bite is that there is less force in that bite than there is in your bite. So it is unlikely to be able to really bite through anything. I'm not going to say it wouldn't hurt, you know, uh,
yeah.
but it really shouldn't be like I've heard the odd story. Oh, somebody had their finger bitten off or whatever. It like I don't think so. But you know what? You
That's
try
so
and
good
like,
to know.
are you sure it was that, or well, I saw blood or whatever, and it's like, yeah, you probably tripped over something running away from it. But right?
Yeah.
And it's in water, it is not at all scared of you, right? It's in its element there.
Yeah.
So it is probably least likely to bite you unless it thinks you're going to feed it, right? And that happens all the time. People go up to their cottages and they think they should be feeding the wildlife. And so that's what tends to happen more, is that they're coming over because they think you're going to offer them something to eat. But if you keep your distance and everything, and you can swim beside them and they won't bother you at all because, like I said, they're in their element. But when you're outside, or when they're outside the water, say they're crossing a road, we have a rule, like you don't touch a turtle unless it's in harm's way. Okay, so if
Okay.
it's on a road, then it's fair game to move it off the road. So um, you go to pick it up, it's going to lurch its head forward and snap, and it is scary as heck, I'll tell you, when you see it, because
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I do it, and it's like it still, makes me jump back every time.
Wow.
But if you can get it behind its legs, let me see if I can
Hmm.
show you on the model. So this
Yeah.
is here, the top of the turtle, the back legs, these sections
Okay.
here. If you can just kind of grab it, sometimes you can even put your hand up in here if it's a small enough turtle, and carry it across. Sometimes you have to just put it on a mat and help move it across. We often use Rubbermaid bins if we have to actually move a turtle out of, like sometimes they get stuck in some place and we need to get them out of there because they'll never manage to get out. So we'll put them in a bin and get them to a safer spot. But sometimes it's very difficult because those snapping turtles also have very long fingernails, and they can scratch you from behind with their back legs. I've had that before. and their front claws, they can like dig into the grass or hold on to a fence. So I find that sometimes they're snapping their head forward is actually something I can work with. I put the bin in front of them, and then when I go to grab them, they get mad, snap themselves forward, throw themselves in the bin. I'm like happy because then I can just turn the bin and take them to where I need to.
Wow.
And that's probably one of the easier ways to, like, especially on a busy intersection around Brampton,
Mhm.
it's easier to like actually just take them across the street in a bin than it is to try and carry them across, because sometimes they're super heavy, and
Right.
and you don't want to be crossing in front of traffic and stuff, because for us it's safety first, like
Yeah,
we got to keep our people safe as well.
for sure. Yeah, I remember being up north one weekend and there was quite a large snapping turtle trying to make his way across the road. And there was a couple of men helping it. And what they had done is just put a stick in front of its mouth and it was biting down on the stick. And then they were kind of dragging it slowly across the road, which I thought, oh, the poor, everybody involved
Yeah.
in that. But the turtle was quite big. Like how big does a snapping turtle get
Um,
to be?
you know what? I'm not sure if I'm good with sizes, but they can
Yeah.
get like quite a I can't
Like
remember
a pizza.
quite
Like
a
a
bit.
pizza.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
a medium pizza.
yeah, a medium pizza size, I would say. Uh,
Yeah.
but quite heavy sometimes. I was at
Mhm.
OTCC, Ontario Turtle Conservation, which is the turtle hospital. Like there are other types of turtle hospitals, but this one actually is the big one in Peterborough that takes in the turtles and can repair the operate on them, repair things, remove fish hooks, things like that. And they
Mhm.
have a turtle ambassador. So meaning the turtle can't go back to the wild for some reason, and it's now on permit to let them keep that turtle. And so the snapping turtle came along through the hallway and was poking its head out. And they were telling me, oh, they had it on a eating more vegetables, so it's lost a bit of weight now, so it's not nearly as
As heavy.
heavy. But I sit there, like my husband and I talked about that. It's like amazing that you could get it to eat its vegetables. And I said, I'm pretty sure that in the wild, they're more opportunistic, right? They're not sitting there going, "Oh, let me eat that duckling." Like they
Mhm.
will if the duckling comes by and it's good timing. They're hungry and everything, but they're just as apt to eat like dead things that are in the water. They're the gardeners and janitors of your wetlands, right? So they clean it up. And they help disperse nutrients and seeds through the wetlands. So, that's how they help with biodiversity and, help us out. So, you know, like a lot of people are afraid of those snapping turtles and think, oh, they're trying to eat us and no. Like I said, they'll eat another turtle even. But again, it has to be pretty like a good opportunity. Like they're
Yeah.
not hunting for these things. They just, oh look, it just came by. I mean, I was at one of our wetlands last year and I saw some ducks going by and I saw the snapping turtle's head come up and those ducks moved really fast, and I thought,
Yeah.
that might have been a good opportunity for it, but it didn't happen,
Right.
thankfully, because I don't want to see that.
No, exactly. And I didn't know that. I assumed that turtles just ate like, you know, grass and stuff
They're
like
omnivores. They'll eat anything.
they'll eat anything.
Yeah,
Okay. So do they, I guess they'd eat fish as well
they
then.
will eat fish. Yeah,
Yeah.
but even
Wow.
like the dead fish are good for them. Like they'll do,
Yeah.
which
I,
is good for us.
right. I'm just laughing, Bruce, when you were saying like that, oh, the turtle's eating its vegetables has probably lost a bit of weight. I'm just because they're in this shell, right?
Yeah.
So the weight is like under that shell, like it can't really go anywhere. So they
Well,
just keep
yeah.
getting like heavier and heavier
You
inside.
should see the snapping turtles. I'm sure if you like Google snapping turtles, and there are ones we call chonky. Like we often
Okay.
that, but they get like, going back to my model here,
Yeah.
this one's not too chonky, but it's like
Mm,
it kind of shows that they can get a lot of um meat in them or whatever, and it's like
yeah.
they can get rather big in that area. And yes, the shell does kind of restrict them, but and I did want to also say the shell is part of the turtle. So
Mhm.
it is part of, like, the whole spine goes through there. So and the tail is also part of it. So people picking them up by the tail, not a good idea. You could actually injure a turtle quite easily. You have to be careful about that. There is a method if you needed to kind of grab the tail, but you shouldn't just pick it up. Like, there are people out there that think that's all you do to get rid of a snapping turtle: pick it up by the tail and give it a chuck or whatever.
Oh,
You should not do that.
no. So is this skeleton actually on the outside? Is that their skeleton, the shell, or
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's all part of them. So they are they are not just in living inside, like, how a hermit crab might like live inside that
yeah,
shell, and they might go and say, oh, let me put a new one on and take it off
yeah.
and go find another one. Turtles can't do that. It's part of them, and they're basically, it's their spine goes through right through the, like, upper part of the shell.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. And Bruce, do you know like how many varieties of turtles we have in Ontario? And is the snapping turtle the biggest one, or is there?
So the largest, like, if you're saying
Yeah,
that,
yeah, size
we have
wise.
8 native Ontario turtles. The 2 that I tend to see in this area are painted and snapping turtles. I do see the red-eared slider pets all the time in the waters. Yeah, so we do have a number of discarded pets, and a few other types of pet turtles have been seen.
So
Um,
those pet turtles, they came from somewhere else. They're not native to Ontario.
right, right. They're
Oh,
usually
we're
from, like, I'm gonna say Texas or Mexico, that type of, like, they're more a southern thing. And what's surprising is that they've adapted to the point where they know to hibernate, which is brumation, they call it for turtles.
okay.
They know to hibernate. They tend to nest 2 or 3 times a season, whereas our native Ontario turtles really only nest once a season. And they and I've seen these pet turtles nest a couple of times. Like, we've documented one that we watched two different times, one year, because we were doing a study with a biologist on the viability of these red-eared sliders in Ontario. Like, could they actually nest and successfully have hatchlings come out of that nest? When we did the study, we did not find any that actually came out, but at the end, near the end of the study, there was one nest in Toronto where they actually found live babies inside the nest. So they were doing the study, and he went to that area, and it was like, okay, so it is possible for them to start um, hatching up in this latitude. And, we've heard that out in British Columbia, it's happening. So as climate changes, we're finding things like that happening. Even people say, okay, it's not turtle season, right? Like turtles aren't out. We have had reports since the end of December of turtles coming out of their nest because of the weird weather.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought that up. I was thinking about that this morning, asking you about that, because this is just crazy. I mean, we're getting this supposed snowstorm now. First day
Yeah.
of spring is tomorrow. And yeah, like all those warm days that we've had, does that disrupt what did you say it was called? Not hibernation for
A
turtles.
brumation. So there's
Yeah, does it
different
disrupt?
things. As an adult turtle, they do brumation or hibernation. So they basically go to the bottom of the wetland and sit down there. Now I'm going to quote this wrong probably, but it's like they only need to breathe once every 10 minutes or something like that. And they actually can take oxygen in through their butts. So they don't need to
Wow.
actually go up for air and get the oxygen, they can absorb it. So they stay down there for as long as they can. And they might actually, like, if you actually ever see a turtle like at the bottom of the water during the winter, it's probably in brumation, and it may even move slightly. Like it might move around a bit. So it's not like it's asleep or anything. It's just in a very slow animated state, right? So
Right. And what about freezing? Like though, if it's shallower water, like the
that's
wetlands, do they freeze? Are
so
they?
I think they can actually freeze. That's why it's not a good thing for them to not be necessarily in the wetland they're familiar with, because
Ah,
so if you start moving them around, they won't know as well how to take care of themselves. Um, I know the same goes with something like, I think, the rattlesnakes. I took some course many years ago on them, and you
mhm.
move them around, and because you think it's better for you, but in the end you're killing them because they can't cope with that, right? They don't know how to survive. So brumation is more of what like the adults do, or even the babies if they come out that year and go into the wetland. But the hatchlings, so we have the snapping turtle and painted turtles here. The snapping turtles, they'll nest in end of May to mid-July, and they'll come out 60 to 90 days later, typically. Okay, depending on soil conditions, tree cover, things like that. Now they'll come out of their shell, but they can stay in their nest for a while. They don't have to come out of their nest. And since we can't look in the nest, we're like kind of stuck with, well, we just watch for hole. We keep watching for these emergence holes. So we protect the nests with these nest protectors, which are box-like structures with mesh, but holes so that the hatchlings can come out on their own. And we watch and see, and if we see an emergence hole, then we'll try and make sure that they have a safe passage to the wetlands. So in some of our areas, the passage is over a footpath where there's lots of bicycles there, so we will make sure they can clear those. Okay. The snapping turtles tend to come out in the fall, and in fact don't have a good reputation or history of actually overwintering into the spring. So they can stay in their nest till spring. On occasion some of them can come out, but they are just as apt to freeze in nest and die if they stay in the nest. Now the painted turtle is built to stay in its nest. So we are more likely, especially like here, we've noticed this, is that are more likely to see them come out in spring. And so they will freeze up in their nest, and they have the ability to do this, freeze up and thaw out and come out in spring.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so it is kind of interesting to see, and I mean, they are so cute, the painted turtles, because they're colorful and
Mm,
everything. I mean, even the snapping turtles are cute, but you know,
yeah.
our first year we did this, we were waiting for those just one painted nest to come out in the fall. Nope, had to wait till spring. We were
Oh,
dying. It's like, oh, come on, we want to see one.
yeah. And typically, how many will come out? Like,
So for a painted turtle, we
yeah.
tend to see something like 6 to 12, we'll say, come out of one nest. They don't tend, depending on the size of the turtle, they can, they lay more eggs when they're bigger. So we'll see 6 to 12, we'll say. For snapping turtles, it can be 30 to, and 70, 80 even. Like I've heard of some place finding something like 80 eggs in the nest. So it is actually possible for snapping turtles to hold a lot of eggs.
Right. Wow.
And
Yeah.
I was just going to say, the snapping turtle has like a ping pong like egg, whereas painted turtles and map turtles, Blandings turtles are more oval shaped.
Okay. So interesting. Ruth, do you have a dream, or have you ever been like anywhere south where you've swam? I don't know if you can
I have
swim with sea turtles, or
So I just
can you
went
do
to Mexico back in, yeah, I went to Mexico back in January,
that?
and
Yeah.
my my one daughter was there as well, and she's like, "Oh, we're going on an excursion. We're going to swim with the sea turtles." And in the end, they didn't get to because the weather, like it was way too windy, and the water
Oh.
was just too rough for it. We
Mhm.
didn't even bother, but I'm like, that would be kind of cool. I'm kind of on the fence on that one because it just seems like not a natural thing to do.
Yeah, I
Kind
know.
of
It's true.
disturbing, and yet, it's I can't help it when I see a turtle, I get like kind of excited. So I get the
Yeah.
hype.
For sure. I went, my mom and I did the swimming with dolphins in Marathon in the Keys. And the reason that we did it was because the facility that they have there, they're not held captive. They're like free to swim out into the ocean, but they just create this nice environment for them where they can come and get food, and they kind of, they're not like, I don't know. Yeah, but I know what you're saying. It's
Yeah,
kind of like, this isn't natural, but
yeah, yeah,
I really want to do this. But is it good for the animal?
yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Wow, that's great. So, I know Ruth, like, th- we've known each other for years because I met you. First of all, you were buying jewelry from me. I guess we met at One of a Kind
One of
was
a
the first
kind.
time,
Yep,
right?
yep,
Yeah, and then you were telling me about the Heartlake Turtle Troopers over COVID, and we
yep,
did a little fundraiser together, which was so awesome.
yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about fundraising for Heartlake Turtle Troopers, and where, if people want to donate money and get involved, what is it that you guys are needing the money for right now? It's good.
So Yeah, so I mean, we do different things. Like we might need nest protectors. So we build those usually from scratch. Sometimes we get sponsors to help us. Like last year, we had Home Depot do a volunteer day with us, and we had them help build or fix actually some of our nest protectors because we like to reuse stuff. I mean, we're not about just like chuck them when they're not working for us.
Yeah.
So we do that type of thing. Sometimes we need bins to do help to take care of these turtles that are like I was explaining earlier, in harm's way, and we want to get them out of the way. And since we have a number of volunteers, most of the volunteers are stuck pulling out their own type of Rubbermaid bins or whatever. So if we can help them, we'll do that. Sometimes we'll help supply gloves, or we also get these bins for excavating eggs. So through a permit with Scales Nature Park, some of us get trained to be able to excavate nests that are in a dangerous place. Like sometimes they're too close to a road, or in an area that's trampled, and there is a potential for it to get upset. Um, we've had even like nests that get predated, so we have to dig up the eggs and carefully put them into a container. There's this whole protocol around it. It's illegal to do it otherwise unless you're permitted. But we have to, we have to put them in a container and then ship them up for incubation so that those turtles can come back to their ancestral wetland. And so there's things like that. And then sometimes, like we had one sponsor who helped us with safety vests, so that when we're out, people can see that we're wearing a safety vest, and if we're near even a pathway, we're not going to get hit by a bike, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So
Right.
there are some various things like that. We are not a charitable organization yet. We haven't gone through the whole thing of
Okay.
that where, but we're nonprofit. And so everything we get is through, sponsors or grants. So we do try and get some grants as well. And so people can either donate to us by like we accept donations through Heartlake Turtle Troopers at gmail.com, or if you want to volunteer, we have a way of signing people up. We ask people to join our Facebook group, and then we can put them into our wetland chats. And there's different types of training. They have to do TRCA training to be able to put a nest protector down. They have to have orientation with us, so they know the area they're working in. And if they get excavation training, then they have to make sure that they've attended that in order to even get on the permit. So we're a little picky about that one.
Right. Can you take us through a day in the life of a Heartlake Turtle Trooper? Like what it just, I mean, what you're doing is so amazing and so necessary. And I just love the photos of you when you're out there, Ruth, and you're like, you got a big smile on your face, you got your gloves on and all your gear, and it's like, wow, you must feel just so connected to these animals, and also feel that so proud to be Canadian, like this is part of
Yeah.
our land, and like you said, like incubating these eggs so that they can go back to their ancestral wetlands. Like those turtles have been there way longer than the 410 and the 407 and
Exactly.
yeah.
So,
Quite something.
like I was saying earlier, nesting season is probably our busiest season. And just remember one thing about being a volunteer for us: we have no control over wildlife. Like we can't control these turtles when they're coming out and doing their thing.
Yeah.
But what we do know is that it tends to be end of May to mid-July when they nest, which means that they're more likely to cross roads or paths at that point. So what we ask our volunteers to do is come out to the areas that we tend to see them at, because they are habitual somewhat, and and we we monitor those areas. So, like one of the wetlands that I tend to go to, I call 6 p.m. the witching hour of turtles because for whatever reason, the painted turtles all come out and start crossing the path. So I'll just go and do my walk around the lake, and all of a sudden I'll see one, and I'll back up. And so what I tend to do is try and stay back, try and keep people from to stay back or go around them.
Mhm.
Um, if I have another volunteer there, we'll kind of flank the each side of the turtle so that one is on one side and one's on the other side in the pathway, so we can stop people on each side, because when a bike's coming through, they'll come through fast, right?
Right.
And so we'll do that. Then we'll watch the turtle nest. So it's not like there, the turtle's nesting and we'll go home. No, we tend to watch it for a couple hours, and a painted turtle is easily an hour and a half, depending on the size. uh,
Yeah.
so I've seen it as fast as an hour and a half, but I've also waited like 4 or more hours for a turtle to nest. So sometimes we ask another volunteer, is anybody able to take over at this point? Because we've
Wow.
had people standing out for hours watching them. And then once they're done nesting, we make sure they get back to water safely. But we also tend to put something on the nest or by the nest so that we can then put a nest protector on top. And we secure the nest protector because we don't want a predator to get to that nest right away. And some of the
Yeah.
wetlands, they will totally dig into that nest as soon as they possibly can. So,
Okay. And
yeah.
what would a predator be? Like coyotes, beavers, like
Not
any?
beavers,
Or
but yeah,
no?
I don't think beavers are like omnivores, but
No.
but coyote potential. We see more mink, eh,
Oh.
raccoons, skunks.
Mhm.
Raccoons and skunks are probably called subsidized predators because most of the issues for turtles are man-made. So we have created a lot more garbage, created more raccoons because there's more
Mhm.
garbage, and therefore they tend to be around more and can dig up these turtle nests.
Right. What
Yeah.
about possums too? I don't know what they eat, but I can't
Yeah.
believe how many possums we see in our neighborhood now. I'm like, I don't even remember a possum when I was a
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah. But you know
Yeah.
what? And it's not like even a crow could start pecking at a nest. I've seen it where
Mhm.
we watched a snapping turtle wandering around one day, and these crows were following it. And it's like, are you waiting for it to nest so that you can go and get to the nest? It was really weird.
Mhm.
But the hatchlings themselves, when they go back into the water,
Mhm.
they're in jeopardy of uh, like the snapping turtles, bullfrogs, heron, any bird that tends to eat like fish, they'll go after them as well.
Oh my gosh. You've got a lot of protecting to do, Ruth. Get the bathtub filled up.
And
No. I'm just kidding. Oh, this has been amazing. I'm so happy to learn so much about turtles, and I think the work you're doing is just awesome. And I love I was gonna say for anybody watching, definitely follow the Heartlake Turtle Troopers Instagram page. There's some really nice photos and
oh yeah,
videos on there, and you guys
yeah,
really do a good job at keeping people informed. I
yeah.
and is Brampton like sort of the hub of the turtles, or that just happens to be where you guys are because of that wetland there? I guess
Yeah, I
there's
think
turtles all over.
Brampton has done a pretty good job on their green space. So
Mhm.
that's why I think we see a lot of turtles. But there are other areas in Toronto where there are turtles around. And we did a couple of our teammates did a documentary with somebody um, on poaching. And
Mhm.
poaching, we have luckily not seen really any poaching in our area, but it's not impossible and it is a concern. So sometimes there are people who think, oh, this is a nice delicacy at a restaurant, or it's good for medicine, making some sort of medicine, and
Mhm.
they'll end up poaching. They may even just try and poach the turtles themselves because some of the species are cute, and it's like, oh, wouldn't this make a nice pet? And let me sell it on Kijiji or whatever, that type of thing. Um,
Mhm.
but one we heard that one wetland in Markham, pretty much lost all its turtles because of poaching. So,
Oh,
it can be a serious issue, and we've heard stories of it, and we hope we never
mhm.
get to experience that one.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Ruth, thank you. Thank you for all this work you're doing,
Thanks. And
saving the turtles. I'm so happy for
I
you.
told you I could talk hours on turtles.
Me too. I'm like so into it. I'm like, damn, we're already done for time. This is
Yeah.
so interesting. Oh, it's great. Well, thank you so much. And I know that you're talking a lot to schools and you also just were the MC for your volunteer appreciation night, which is amazing. And you had some of your local MPPs come out and you were you able to educate them a little, or are
Well,
they understanding the importance?
fortunately, we've actually educated a lot of the politicians in our area
Mhm.
on the need for the turtles. So that's
Yeah.
actually something that the group has done really well with, and so I think we get a lot of support from them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
yeah.
Ruth, thank you so much for your time. I'm gonna put you backstage again and then I'll come right back to you. But I really appreciate the interview and thanks for educating all of us. You're amazing. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And now you're gonna have a whole different approach when you see a turtle on the side of the road. Um, you'll call Ruth. Anyways, take care. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Check out all of our show sponsors, brendabedome.com, flourishandbask.ca, scooters.ca, and of course my website, glamjulz, spelled GLAMJULZ.com. Reach out if you're interested in a fundraiser. I would love to help you. Thank you so much for being here and keep on showing the world your sparkle. I will see you back here next week as we continue to celebrate a month of celebrating women with another amazing female. We'll see you back here next week. Bye for now.